Hi, I'm Elizabeth Gearhart here with Fireside, and I am talking to Faith Kinslow, who has True Identity Branding. Now, Faith is an award winning copywriter who is an expert in branding and marketing, and she will consult with your small to medium sized business. She also has an online course on branding called Brand to Sell, and she helps you with the branding strategy so that you maximize the return from your branding and marketing dollars. So, hi, Faith.
Hi, Elizabeth.
How
Thank
are
you so
you?
much for having me here.
Yeah. So, your experience goes back a ways. You've worked in big companies and then you started your own, and you really understand the whole marketing sphere and how it's changing and has changed, and how small and medium sized companies get lost when they maybe want to do it because they don't have the money that the big companies do. So, how do you help them?
Well, the way that I help them is um, because I have, a few decades um, writing advertising copy. Um, and because in my early years, I worked at a large top advertising agency on big brands like General Mills, like Pantyhose, Procter and Gamble. I really was educated in brand strategy. And before you spend $1 on your marketing, you really need to have a brand strategy. Otherwise, you really don't know what message will resonate, with your prospects. So what I found is that I can bring my heavy duty advertising background and my copywriting experience to small business owners who can't afford the exorbitant fees that a large agency requires. So I really love working with smaller business owners, medium-sized business owners, because I can really help them. They couldn't get that kind of knowledge, on their own because a large agency wouldn't even, really speak with them.
Right, absolutely. I agree 100%. And when you talk about brand strategy, I mean, you can throw up a website, you can maybe post on Twitter once a month or whatever, you know, that's not brand strategy. So what do you mean by brand strategy?
Okay. So a brand strategy is all the key messaging points that need to be made to make a sale. Um, and when I worked at a large ad agency as a creative person, the account team would give me, they called it a creative brief. I call it a strategic brief because I'm giving it to business owners who want to learn about it. So the kind of questions that are on it and the answers that are there help you create a message that is compelling and effective. One of them is, who is your target market? What do you want them to believe? What is your unique selling proposition? And the acronym they use is USP. And it sounds complicated, but really what it means is what makes you unique from others in your category, whether you sell a product or a service. What makes you different? So those are just, a few of the, let's say, 10 to 12 questions that are on a brand strategy. And these are critical for business owners to be able to answer because otherwise they're wasting their money. They put up a website, but nobody will be interested in it because you have to talk directly to your prospect and know exactly what to say. You basically have 2 seconds. Nowadays, you have 2 seconds to capture somebody's attention, and you have to show them that you have a benefit that they need and they want. And you also need to target people who not only need and want your product or service, but who have the financial means to afford it. So there are a number of important things that you need to know. And that's actually why I created my online course, Brand to Sell, and it's brand, the number two, or to sell.com.
Right. And I think one thing you're bringing up that's really important is there is a ton of content out there right now. There are a ton of websites, there are a ton of people on social media. I mean, there's just so much information coming at everybody all the time. How do you stand out and how do you show that you're different? And that's really what you try to do with your brand, right?
Exactly, exactly. Um, one of one of the most exciting things for me, and I did this with many companies throughout my career, whether I worked, on big brands, or when I worked at smaller marketing agencies, or when I worked with clients one-on-one, is I would have a kickoff meeting with the owner of the business. And in the kickoff meeting, I would try to learn as much as I could about his or her product or service. One of the questions I would ask is, what makes you different from your competitors? And without fail, every single time I asked this question, they would give me an answer and I'd say, no, so and so says this. Is there something else? And again, they'd tell me something and I'd say, no, actually, everybody in your category can say that. Can you tell me something else? And after 3 times asking that question, I decided I think I'll have to go around this another way. So I would just ask them about different things about their company. And after a half hour, 45 minutes, they would just spontaneously say something, thinking that it was nothing, actually, nothing important. I'd say, can you tell me a little bit more about that? How did you do that? Or how did you figure that out? And they would tell me something. And in my head, it would be like a light went off, a bell went off. What, I'd realize I called it the golden nugget. I had the golden nugget I needed to base a campaign on, and I would use that to build out a campaign. And to me, that was the most satisfying thing. And in the last few years, when I thought about how am I different from other copywriters or marketing people, I realized that I always am very diligent about learning everything I can about, my client, so I can best serve him. And part of that is really digging down deep. And maybe it's because I was a psychology major, or I have a natural curiosity and I want to understand things, but I really dig deep until I get down there and I discover or uncover something that is a little different, and that I can actually use to show that there is a difference. And when you focus on that and can speak about it in a positive light and show how that's relevant to their meaningful benefit, that is really what will sell your product or service, nothing short of that. So that's what excites me. And in my course, when I get to module 3, which is the unique selling proposition, I say, well, I love working on this. This is really what I call the special sauce of branding. When you discover this or have somebody help you figure this out, this is what's going to set you apart. And then you're on your way to creating sales.
Absolutely. And one thing that you mentioned, and I can't remember if it was we were talking before or just now, but and you touched on it just now, is there's a big difference between telling somebody what you do and how what you do benefits them. Because I don't hire somebody because of what they do or how they do it. I hire somebody to make me money if I have a company, or help me make money, right? And so
Exactly.
you have to tell them this is how I'm going to help you make money, right?
That's perfect. And that's another major point I make in the branding course. The first thing I teach them is about the difference between features and benefits. And I explain to them that it is benefits, not features, that drive sales. And a lot of business owners only talk about the features, but the features, what features are, the way you can actually discern them for your own company is a feature is a fact or a characteristic.
Mhm.
A benefit is the result. It's the benefit that the users get by using your product or service. And that is the only thing that's important to them. So don't talk about features. You talk about benefits. If you are speaking to somebody one-on-one, you talk about the benefits. If they are really interested in your company and you're developing a conversation, later on you could mention a couple of the features, but features are like looking at a laundry list. I have to wash my socks and my underwear and my pants and my shirts. It's just a laundry list. Nobody cares about that. And that's one of the important things that I try to help and guide business owners to do. Figure out what their most meaningful benefit is.
Right. And for instance, in that laundry list you just talked about, you wouldn't say, I wash your shirts separate from your socks. That you would say, I make sure you have a very nice looking, clean outfit that you can wear every day that you don't have to worry about. Right.
Exactly. I mean, perfect. It's like, don't get into the weeds, because if you get into the weeds, people can't see the forest from the trees. And one of the points that I make is that if you only tell people about the features, you're leaving them to connect the dots between the features and the benefits. That
Mhm.
makes them work too hard, and they'll most likely just ignore your offer. And if they try to figure it out, and most people won't, you're at risk of them drawing the wrong conclusion, which certainly won't help you make a sale. So, yes, I just want to have a clean outfit every morning when I'm getting ready for work and going out the door. However you do it, I really don't care. Just give me an outfit.
Right. And so, but that's only one module in your whole series of in your class. So I don't want to give away your whole class. I mean, I think people that want a branding strategy would really, it would benefit them a lot to take it and go through it, because for everything that you do in business, I think there has to be a strategy. And oftentimes we think, oh, I need a piece of this, a piece of that. But you really have to fit it together in the whole. And it has to also, that strategy has to fit with your overall business strategy, right? So that's something you do too, right?
Yes, yes. And in fact, you mentioned, you don't want to give away, what's in my course. Um, you know, I, just to make it simple for people, um, it's important for them to know that I made it very streamlined so they could go through it quickly and painlessly, because I know that business owners are wearing so many hats and they don't have hours and hours like they were taking like a university course. They could watch the 10 short videos in an hour and 40 minutes, and they will understand what's critical for them to know. In addition, in 3 of the modules, I have a framework, and I just ask them a few questions. All they need to do is answer them. By the end of the 5th module, you will have a brand strategy, very like the ones you would get at a big ad agency, minus the, $30,000 cost. Of course, you won't be doing the same amount of research, but you don't need to, because you're not Procter and Gamble. You don't need to spend, $500,000 on research. I actually teach you how to do research just using your computer online, how to find your ideal prospects, and watch some particular social media channels to see how they talk about um, the problems that they have. And just with that information, you can have quite a solid brand strategy, which is amazing. And I never even realized was possible until, um, business owners came to me and, complained that they were wasting money. And I asked them, do you have a brand strategy? And when they said they didn't, and they didn't know what one was, I said, like, this is what I have to do. I have to create a course. And, it took 2 years, but I got so much satisfaction out of finally, launching it, getting it off the ground. And you don't know what people are going to think about it until they take it. And um, a number of people have taken it, and there's about 10 to 12 testimonials that they wrote without me twisting their arm. I actually just went onto LinkedIn and I found them there, or they emailed me, and I was so happy that they wrote that they, for the first time, they really understood what branding was. And one woman actually, who was very well educated, says, this this is refreshing what I learned at Wharton. And I was like dumbfounded. I was like dumbfounded because, I'm certainly not competing with any MBA programs, but the fact that she found it very useful was great. And, other people said that the teaching style, I taught it in a number of ways to appeal to different people. And I tried to make it light. I tried to put a joke in here and there because, I wanted to make it a little bit enjoyable if I could.
Yeah. Well, and so let's say somebody gets stuck in the course, because I think the hard part, and I've done a lot of these interviews, and I agree with you that every interview I do, I tell people, figure out what makes you special and different. Like, what value do you give people that's special and different, the way that you do it that nobody else does? So many people get stuck on that. So if somebody gets stuck on that, do you do personal consulting as well?
Yes, I do. In fact, I actually started doing more of it because I found that, business owners called me. Actually, they were, considering hiring me to write their copy. And I would start asking them questions and I would say, I think you're wasting your money doing that. I think you should do this, you know, or I saw some of their, a businessman, was writing a LinkedIn post, and it wasn't clear to me what the aim of his post was. And I know him personally. And I said, do you just want to tell stories, or are you actually trying to get business? And he wrote, Faith, I'm trying to get business. And I said, well, you need a call to action in it. And he says, I don't know how to write a call to action, Faith. I said, I'll write it for you. Don't worry. And I wrote it. And he told me like a month or two later that he ended up getting a few clients from it just because I told him to include a call to action. And I wrote something which was very easy for me to do just because I've been writing for 40 years. But it helped him so much that I got so much satisfaction. And this is what I was trying to do. Small business owners can't afford to waste $2,000 on a website or, Facebook ads or whatever. They can't, and it really kind of breaks my heart when I met people who just hired SEO experts who were going to supposedly get them more sales. But even if they're SEO experts, if there's no brand strategy, they don't really know what words and what terms would even appeal to the client's target market. So that's why strategy always comes first before tactics. Tactics is the SEO. Strategy are those questions about, the key indicators like your target market, your most meaningful benefit, your unique selling proposition. That has to come first. Like I liken it to, you're building a house. Do you build the top of the house first, or do you build the foundation? If you don't have the foundation, the rest of the house is just going to sink, like your sales.
Right. Well, the other thing about this is, I think your course is super valuable because I honestly feel like, now I do help with the marketing for my husband's law firm, but, and I have Fireside, of course, but I feel like if you are a business owner at all, you are always marketing. And if you don't have a strategy, then it's harder to be successful. So your brand is always out there. and you really, like you said, the words are so important, right?
Yes, and that's something that business owners sometimes don't think about, that you could have a wonderful service. You can be a fantastic patent lawyer, like your firm is. But that alone is not going to sell your service. You have to explain to people why you are the patent lawyer that they should hire, that you can deliver on the results that they want, and why are you better than your competitors. It really won't do you any good. You could be the best patent lawyer in the country. If you don't know how to give that message, the right message out to the target market, you're not going to be hired. And it's unfortunate, but that's the only way that people get to know you, is through communication.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. And yeah, so I'm not actually a lawyer, my husband is, but I work in his law firm with him. But, we started years ago, we realized that it wasn't enough just to tell somebody, yeah, I'll write a patent application for you, that they had to have a whole business strategy and that the IP had to fit into their business strategy. So much as what you're doing with the marketing strategy, it all has to fit together in your business. But marketing, I mean, we tell our clients the patent's important so other people can't copy you, but the marketing is probably the next most important, or one of the most important things, because if nobody knows about you, then you're not going to sell, right?
Yeah, and it really makes you keenly aware that what we learn about language, like the pen is mightier than the sword,
Hmm.
um, is true. It's really true. And you look at any industry and you see that the way that the brands that have really made a lot of traction in any marketplace, they're the ones that are out there, that have a message that resonates, um, whether it's entertaining, um, whether it's something that's a necessity or something that's a luxury. They have a message and they stand out in some way, and they make sure that they stand out. And just to give people proof about how important brand strategy is, every single big company I worked with spent a fortune of money developing a brand strategy. And they had to, because they spend millions and millions of dollars on, whether it's TV commercials, whether it's print ads in magazines, um, digital ads, whatever they do. If their strategy is off by a little, they they will lose not only the money that they spent on their marketing, they're going to lose all the sales, all the potential sales. And that's why they keep such a close eye on the brand strategy and on the sales figures. They test out different, different campaigns. They'll do an A/B test to see, because if you could get your sales up by 0.25%, that could mean multi-millions in sales. So if the big companies think this is important, the small companies should actually pay attention to it.
Right. Well, I remember going to a seminar years ago and the guy saying, okay, if I say this phrase, tell me what comes into your mind. The ultimate driving machine.
Is that BMW?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And what comes into my mind with it is these curvy roads, right? But it's the same thing for trademarks. Trademarks are part of your branding. And those big companies you were talking about, they fight tooth and nail. I worked at Dow Chemical and they had, they made us put trademark on everything, because they did, if you don't identify it as your trademark and use it, you can lose it. And they guarded their intellectual property like, you know, can imagine a chemical company, especially with their patents and everything. But yeah, branding if it's important to the big guys, there's a reason, just like you said. And the little guys probably need to know what that reason is and do similar things, right?
Exactly, exactly. And um, what's interesting about it for me is that I love doing it, even though I've been doing it for 40 years. I'm just excited now when I work on, campaigns and ideas and concepts as I was, 40 years ago, because I get a lot of satisfaction out of like nailing something that really resonates with someone. Coming up with a headline or a tagline that somebody's going to just like, what did you say? Because it's that kind of thinking that will get, whether it's a consumer or a business, to look at your product or service and say, what did they say? Let me read a little further. And then they'll read your copy. And that's where you really give the double punch, and you convince them that, you should contact us.
Well, and I think that a lot of business owners too are good at what they do with the business, but they don't have the creative piece necessarily. And so they have to appeal to a creative such as yourself to help them with that creative piece that's going to get something that resonates in the world today. I know my husband's law firm does that. He hires creatives. I mean, we consider ourselves creative, but we're nowhere near as good as some of the people that we talk to, right?
Well, your company is very smart. I have met with a lot of business owners, and what they say is, "Oh, I can write the copy." So, I see evidence of this, all over the internet, and I could tell that a professional copywriter didn't write it, because even if you know the English language, even if you can make perfectly grammatical sentences, writing marketing is a craft
Hmm.
and part art as well. Um, it's not just about writing perfect sentences. It's actually about saying what you need to say with the least amount of words, because you have somebody's time for a very short time. So you've got to give them the 1-2 punch as soon as you start. And, people aren't trained like that. When we write essays in school, um, I remember we used to get better grades if we wrote long essays, you know. If you wrote, flowery words and your sentences were long, the teacher thought you put so much effort and time into it. But it's the exact opposite when you write copy. And I remember years ago writing copy, I always had a tendency to write more. I wanted to get every reason in and keep on convincing, the prospect to buy. But with more and more experience, I learned from, you know, supervisors and creative directors, Faith, could you make it a little shorter? Could you make it a little shorter? And now I'm just like trained, like in a way like an athlete, like how fast could you run that mile? Well, how fast can I deliver my message? How many words can I do this in? And actually, the less words make it more effective. And so it really takes a high degree of skill to do this, and it takes a long time. I'm writing for 40 years. It I get better every year, and every time I write a piece of advertising or marketing copy for a digital page, I read it over dozens and dozens of times to see, can I eliminate any words? Can I find a better word that's more compelling? Can I make something move and flow a little better? And then at the end, I like to like wrap it up in like a little bow and have like a little snappy end line and call to action. But it's almost like, painting a picture, but you're doing it with words, and you're doing it with the result in mind. And that's why it's a very specialized skill, and it's different from being a journalist, or even writing magazine articles and blogs. You have much less time to grab somebody's attention. You have to tell the story as quickly as you can.
Absolutely. It is a skill and an art, both, I believe. And not everybody has it. And I think the people that are going to be the most successful with their marketing efforts are going to say, okay, I'm good at doing this piece of my business. Let me get a true creative in here, a copywriter like you to do that piece. So I think it's well worth people to at least take your course. I mean, start there and then come to you with questions and for more advice and help, right?
Yeah, I actually, I recommend that, even if I could do the whole thing for them. I could develop their strategy. I could write all their advertising and marketing, and no problem. I'd be happy to do that. But for the sake of your future, not only for this business, but for any business that you may get into in the future, if you take the course and learn the branding principles, they will apply to any business that you get into in the future. So it's a tiny investment that will save you so much money. I've met too many business owners just waste a lot of money, on marketing that didn't work. And, it's just because they didn't have some basic branding knowledge.
Right. And if you have a business, you need it. That's the end of
Yes,
story, right? Right.
exactly.
So what is your website?
Okay. My website for my branding course is, www.brand the number 2 sell.com. And if they're interested in seeing my marketing writing, they could see that at trueidentitybranding.com. And it really, the name of my company is a reflection of my philosophy that you have to find your company's true identity. Um, Not something that somebody makes up for you, but it has to be really organic to who you are. Tell the truth about who you are and give you an identity that nobody else can take away from you.
Excellent. Is there anything else that people need to know about what you do?
No, I'm happy, to take a phone call. If people want to email me, they can email me at faith@trueidentitybranding.com. They could ask me questions either about my course or, if they want branding or marketing consulting, or creative work done. I'd be happy to speak to them.
Excellent. Well, I've learned a lot today, so thank you. Thank you very much.
Well, Elizabeth, it's been a pleasure. And thank you so much for inviting me on your show.